Sometimes life gets messy. Sometimes it gets hard. We may not know where to turn or how to break the cycle. But there's good news. There is hope. Welcome to Hope Connection, a podcast connecting you with everyday people who found hope in the difficulty and tragedy of life. As they tell their stories of freedom and a better life, we trust you will find encouragement and tools to take with you on your journey. If you are looking for more resources of hope, contact the Hope Line at 888-912-6487 or email us at hopeline@ahandupministries.org. And now, we invite you to settle in and join us for this episode of Hope Connection.
Hello, welcome to Hope Connection. It's a joy of ours to be able to come here today and try to bring a story of hope that will be able to reach broken people. I'm Rex. This is my beautiful wife, Tammy.
I'm so excited because we get to witness all of these stories of hope. Some of them we get to be a part of from the very beginning, and then others we get to come in just when God's doing his beautiful work, restoring marriages,
yes.
restoring kids to their parents, breaking the chains of addiction or anxiety, depression, you name it. So I'm just really excited today.
Yes, and I am super excited about the guests that we have today. And I hope that you're blown away as much as we've been blown away just to see where she was. You're going to be able to hear from her about addiction, jail. You're going to hear about parenting and not so good at parenting. And you're going to hear a story about how she at one time was a possible DOA in a parking lot and then went to the hospital. But God.
Yes, and I get to see her just perform her talents and just serve, and it's just amazing to see where God's brought her from, because when you look at her today, you would never imagine the past that she had. So today I'm going to introduce to you Candice Lovell. Candice!
Yay!
Candice, tell us where and who you are today.
So I am Candice, and today I am a faithful believer that Jesus can restore the worst of the worst. I am a mother. I've always been a mother since I've given birth, but I am a present mother. I am employable and I am employed. I am a worship leader. I love to just sing about what God's done in my life, and I have the ability to do it. I am a Georgia certified peer specialist that specializes in mental health. Basically,
found that out today.
I just found that out this morning at 7 a.m. I wasn't supposed to find out until Wednesday, but maybe I found out earlier so that, I could share this. Someone needs to hear that. Yes. There's just so many things that I am now that I never believed that I would ever be able to be.
Sure. I'm sure there was a time when I don't even know if it even came into your want to list to be a certified mental health counselor, but it just a beautiful situation. You sing, people invite you to come and give your testimony, and you get to sing. Let me tell you about my Jesus. Beautiful. I just love it. I cry every time you sing it because we've been able to watch the story. I still remember the day that you called and we talked about, and I've shared this with you before. You had all the right answers. You had all the stuff going, and but that's who you are now. You're just a beautiful, beautiful young lady. Got your kids back in your home, and just goals and purposes. God's just doing something, but it hadn't always been that way. No. And there was times when you never saw this coming. Okay. So just in your own words, take us back to wherever you want to jump in to the old life.
So my drug use started when I was 14. My mother had demons of her own. that she was dealing with that were just too strong for her to overpower and overcome. And so I became a product of the system at a very early age. I was an impressionable young girl. I was not encouraged to stay on the right path, and so I didn't. I looked for fulfillment in men, in self-harm, drugs, alcohol, anything that I could do, take, or be around that would make me feel different than what I had to wake up and go to bed feeling every morning. I had identified myself as just being unloved, unwanted, as though I didn't have a purpose, as though I wasn't created for anything other than what I was at the time. So I can remember there was a time in my addiction I actually started getting high with my parents. My dad was an alcoholic and my mom was in addiction, as well as my older sister. And we became a family again that was just centered on drugs and lies and manipulation. And I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest son, Bo. And when Bo was born, he was very low birth. They called his time of death at 3:02 a.m. on June 10th. And he came back, and he was in the NICU for a very long time. And I could remember just the doctors and the nurses. They talked about his low birth weight and how he was the way that he was. And they said that it was suspected drug abuse during pregnancy. So Bo, from the time of his birth, was removed. I was not allowed to be alone with him till he was 6 weeks old, and I hired an attorney, and I was able to get him back. But Bo didn't function like a normal child functioned. He was extremely developmentally delayed, physically impaired, and this hurt me. I felt as though I had caused this. I did not use once I found out I was pregnant, but I used up until I found out that I was pregnant. And just the shame and the guilt and the remorse just overpowered me. And so before Bo even turned a year old again, I was using. I started back by drinking. And if anyone thinks that alcohol is not a drug, alcohol led me to my drug abuse every single time. Every single time it started with alcohol. And so I started using heavily, and DFAC stepped in once again, and they created a case plan, and that caught my attention just enough for me to straighten up. And I started dating a police officer, and because I felt as though I had a desire to want to be different, I just didn't know how. So I was just pulling at so many different straws, and I thought that if I married a cop, that would be the end of my drug abuse. I would never have to go get high again. If I drank, it was okay because it was socially acceptable. I used him as an accountability partner to not have to get high anymore. And we got married, and I found out I was pregnant with my second son, and his birth resulted in a C-section. And I had never experienced withdrawals or any type of erratic behavior from lack of drugs. And so when people would tell me that they would steal to get high, I thought that they was just saying that, because I never had to steal to get high. I never had to lie to get high. I never had to do anything immoral to get high. I just got high. And but it was when I had my C-section and the doctor gave me the narcotics, the pain pills, I finally realized that it was a real thing. The withdrawal started, the lies started, the manipulation started. And at this time, I was working at the bank, and I was married to a police officer. And so I was able to go to different not pharmacies, but doctors, and tell them I was having back pain, or tell them I was having, any type of ailments, and they would write me a prescription because I didn't look like an addict. I from the outside looking in, the deception was she's got a nice little family. She works a 9 to 5 at the local bank, and he serves and protects on the local law enforcement. And so I never gave them any reason to think otherwise. And I ended up having a back surgery in 2012, and that meant I quit my job, and I basically became a stay-at-home pill addict. Was going to the pain clinic. I was just getting so many different pain pills, prescriptions, and it just the depths that took me. It was, I can't even fathom ever being in that spot until you're in that spot. I was smoking marijuana to try to get off of the pain pills, and my husband found my marijuana, and he called the cops on me, and he kicked me out of the house. And I turned to the streets. I knew that they would accept me for who I was. They wouldn't want me to change, because at this time I had developed this identity that this was who I was, and this was what I was, and this was what I was going to do and always do. And it wasn't very long after that I started intravenously using, and that just completely took me to a whole nother world. And I would clean up a little bit. I would get locked up, and I would clean up, 30 days, 45 days, but I wasn't ever recovering. I was just abstinent. I had no desire to stay clean. I just had to go through the motions because that's what the state would tell me I had to do. And, one thing led to another. And I finally had I got married again, and I had my third son, Legend. And I had been off of any heroin or opiates for 2 years, but I was using other substances and drinking very heavily. And I had Legend, and I had a C-section again. And I did not disclose to my doctor that I had struggled with an opiate addiction before. I just assumed that because I had had that period of abstinence that I was going to be okay. Sure. And I had the C-section, and the cravings began immediately. And it was almost as if everything that I had lost before, and I felt like I worked hard to get back, all of that, it was just gone out the window. And that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to heroin. I wanted to it was the monster on the inside of me was just clawing out, just trying to be released. And instead of speaking on it, and instead of asking for help, I chose to hide it, and I chose to go back to it. And that goes without saying, just the lies, when you're having to lie, everyone sees it, but you don't think anyone sees it. I thought that because I was able to maintain employment that I wasn't out of control. And that only lasted a month, possibly, once I got back on it. And once you lose employment and you're already so far in it, you don't think, wait a minute, I need to straighten up so that I can get a job. You think, well, this is we have this mentality of everything happens for a reason, but we never stop to think that reason is because of the things that we're doing. Yeah, and it was the stupid decisions that I was continually making. And so I ended up losing the kids in January of 2020. And that year, the whole year of 2020 was just a complete turning point for me. So here I am. I'm kidless. I'm living with my grandpa because I don't have money for my own place. I'm not self-sufficient. I decide that I'm not going to let anyone else hold me down. I was going to do what I needed to do build an empire and to not have to rely on anyone. And I wish that I could say that I used that ambition to change my life and to be better and to get better and to live better, but I didn't. I decided that I was going to start being a drug dealer. And so I started selling heroin in a Tri-County area, and just the power seemed to fuel me, but it wasn't power based on truth. You know, it was the sense of being needed and wanted by people that didn't care about me, only what I had to offer them, when I had children at home who needed and wanted me more than these people ever could imagine needing or wanting me. But when you're so far stuck out there, you don't even stop to consider the ones who truly care for you. And so in April of 2020, I was admitted into the ICU at Piedmont Healthcare in Atlanta. And I had gangrene that had set up in my lungs. And I don't know, most of you know when gangrene sets up, it's a flesh-eating infection. And so if you can only imagine having that in your lung, what it's doing to your lungs. It's eating away your lungs. And so the term for it was necrotizing pneumonia, and it collapsed my right lung, and it killed 22% of the tissue in my left lung. And the doctors told me, you know, that I would be bound to oxygen probably forever, that it's not something that people bounce back from, especially if I didn't stop using. And so I stayed in the hospital, in the ICU and in the hospital for about a month and a half, and I was released, and I went back to using again. And this time, you know, I couldn't sell drugs anymore, because all I wanted to do was do them. You know, that's all I wanted to do was just do drugs. And so I would go to detox. I remember I went 3 days and left. Then I went to another sober living facility 2 days, and then I left. I even made my mom drive 4 hours one way to pick me up, 2 hours to Atlanta to treatment, for me to tell her I wasn't going. I mean, she had already driven 6 hours, and I told her, I'm not going, I'm not staying. And she drove me the 2 hours back, and then the 4 hours back. That was a 12-hour waste of her time. And it's just, that's how 2020 went for me. It was, I wanted to clean up, but I didn't want to clean up. It's not that I was having fun. It was just, I had lost all sense of self-worth. My identity was found solely in heroin and heroin alone. Anything that had anything to do with it, I wanted to be a part of it.
So that took you to the whole selling it, but then it finally got a grip on you, and it was all about using it. And the health situation, the kids, where are they during this time?
They were all over the state of Georgia. Bo was living with my mom, and Legend was living with his dad, and then Hayden, my middle son, was living with his dad in Rabun County. So they were all, you know, hours apart.
Okay, so it sounds like you're just really in a downward spiral. It's taking over. Tell us from that time to the parking lot.
So, I guess you would say I wanted to die, but I was too big of a chicken to do it myself. So I would intentionally use more than I knew I could. I guess the legacy of unintentional overdose was better than suicide. And so I constantly used with the intention of using too much every time that I used. And the one time that I used, December 18th of 2020, I had used, and I was in a Walmart parking lot in Hall County, Georgia, and I woke up to Narcan, and there were, I think, probably 4 or 5 police officers sitting around me. There were 3 first responders, 2 fire trucks, and people just standing all around. And I didn't really know what was going on. All I knew was I felt a sense of relief. And to say that the police are there and you know you're in trouble, but you feel a sense of relief is the oddest thing that I can ever verbalize. But when I was arrested that day, I was so relieved because I knew that this time that I wasn't going to get a slap on the wrist, that I wasn't going to go in and turn around and come right back, because I knew, I knew where I was going to go if I kept using, and it wasn't going to be to prison this time. It was going to be, to the grave. And I mean, I don't know what it was, why that overdose specifically. I don't know. Maybe it was just the I feel like it's different when you're with friends and you overdose and they bring you back to life with Narcan, but when you're in a parking lot and you're not breathing and you're unresponsive and you've got sweet little ladies and their children in the parking lot and they're seeing you and their children are having to witness this. I mean, it brings life to a situation in a whole new, on a whole new level. And so I didn't want anyone to ever have to see that again. It was just, that was a turning point for my life.
So, did one of the responders share with you, who told you that when they headed that way, there was possible DOA in the parking lot?
Yeah, one of the responders. When they were administering Narcan, they just, because it took, I was like, I don't know, 100 pounds, but I had developed a tolerance, and the higher your tolerance, I guess the more Narcan that they have to administer. And because the first time, I guess it didn't work, but I could remember you go out of consciousness and you're back into consciousness, and just the panic and the stress in their voice, they're like, she's not going to make it. She's not going to make it.
Wow. So, all of this drug use, all of it that you kept hidden because you didn't look the part, and, you coming in doing the whole, going to be, I know your drive, you were going to be the biggest druggery pusher in the area, and then it consumed you and just spit you out in that parking lot. But you had a sense there. Tell us chain of events that happened from that time on.
From the overdose?
Yeah.
So I was arrested. A few days before that, well, let me go back a couple of months before that, one of my stays at Piedmont Healthcare in Athens, I met a doctor. And this doctor, I had been through this back and forth, in and out of the hospital so many times that year. My health was just, it was bad. It was so bad. And I remember I was coming out of the bathroom, and once again, another physician knocked on my door, and I said, I'm coming, and he's like, don't hurry, take your time. Very meek, very humble. And so I come in there, and I'm just a whole bucket of attitude. And I'm like, what do you want? And he was like, sit down and tell me about yourself. And I was like, I'm a heroin addict. What more do you want to know? I was like, it says right there in my chart. Because it seemed like all of the doctors that came in, they wanted me to say this. Every one of them asked me to tell them about me, and it was almost like they wanted to hear me admit that. And I wasn't in denial. I knew I had a problem. I didn't want to stop. And he said, sit down, I want to show you something. And he pulls out his phone, and he starts going through pictures. And he pulls up a picture of a beautiful young woman, and her picture's on a gravestone. And he tells me, he said, this is my daughter. He said, we lost her to a heroin overdose. And he said, you remind me so much of her when, he said, you're vibrant, you're smart, you're bright. And to hear someone say that about you, someone that doesn't even know you, from a medical standpoint, when all of the other doctors just looked at me like, an ID number or a medicated chart. And he came in there and he did nothing but spoke hope over me. I started to feel like maybe I was worth it. My mom would tell me I was worth it. The church ladies, they would tell me I was worth it. But I felt like that was their duty, that they had some spoken oath that they were supposed to tell broken young women that God loved them. I just didn't feel it at this time. But that was different when someone who has a PhD tells you that you can do it. Because I guess we know that when a doctor tells you that you're sick, you're going to believe you're sick. So when the doctor told me that I could do it, I started to believe that I could do it. And I remember my mom asking me what I wanted for Christmas that year. And I told her I just wanted to be clean. I didn't mean it. I just figured that's what she wanted to hear. And so 7 days before Christmas was when I was locked up. On Christmas that year, I had 7 days clean. And I remember calling Mom, and she's like, so what are you getting for Christmas? And I said, a sobriety date, And I was still unsure at that time. And even once I got out, if that's what I wanted, because I was a tornado in my addiction and through my whole life. And I had just left this path of destruction a statewide. When I say a statewide, I mean from northeast Georgia to northwest Georgia. And turning around and looking at all of the destruction that I was going to have to clean up because it was something that I did was so overwhelming. And I didn't believe that I had the strength that it took to clean that mess up on my own. And so when I did come into the program, a part of me wanted to change, but like I said, I didn't really think that I had the strength that it took to be able to do it. Like I didn't have my kids, I didn't have a job, I didn't have nothing when I came in, absolutely nothing but my name, and it wasn't even a good one at that time. And I remembered probably about 3 months in, I didn't want to do it, but I had a revelation on the front porch one night that no matter where I go, I would be there. and I was the problem, and so once you realize you're the problem, you stop finding fault in everything else and you start looking for the fault in yourself. And so once I was able to do that, I was able to start allowing and asking Jesus to fix that because I couldn't do it. I had tried and I had tried and I had tried, and it was just a beautiful moment of utter surrender at that time. I mean, it was thundering and lightning outside, and it was raining, and it was just me and God out on that porch, and I finally told him, I said, you can have this because I don't want it. I don't want this life that I had. Wow. I want to give it to you because I know you can do something with it because I can't do anything but make a mess.
And that night, even though we weren't aware of that night, the after effects of that night began to show. You total flip-flop and putting effort in, having a different attitude, having a different mentality, and it's brought you to right here. You have you've been through several things that should have took you out physically, almost destroyed your body. You're not supposed to be even sitting here without oxygen, much less singing. I wish you guys could hear her sing. Beautiful, beautiful voice, and she can bellow it out too, and I just love it. And I cry all the time when I hear you singing, because it is the evidence of what this thing of hope is all about. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be able to have the gifts and talents that you have and be able to use them for His glory. But you're here. And I hope somebody out there is hearing all of this.
Yes.
because it could have gone so many other different directions, so many different times. And something inside her, somebody spoke something, and you still go back and forth with that doctor sometimes. She told me the other day she sent him something, and he just cried. The connection that they still have, but it changed. And God is no respecter of persons, so what he did for Candice,
Yes.
he wants to do for you. You may be stuck in addiction, you may be stuck in a broken relationship, you may be watching DFACs take your kids because you're in open addiction and you can't turn it around. You may have had a doctor tell you that this is the way you're going to live. You're not going to live normal the rest of your life because of what you've done to your body. And I want you to know, there's hope. There is hope. And you can, if she did this, and I can remember those days, I wasn't sure where Candice was going to flop, because you can tell a little bit, she's pretty headstrong, but when she surrendered, everything began to change. Now, she'll be the first one to tell you that, her life, is not hot apple pie in the sky and a sweet by and by every day. There's still stuff, right?
Yeah.
But such a beautiful people that meet her now can't imagine where she's been and what she's done. And I'm just so thankful that we got to be able just to watch this beautiful story of hope unfold. And Candice, what I just can't help but believe there's somebody out there, either through the addiction piece or thank you for sharing that about alcohol, because there's so many people out there that think, the alcohol, it may be okay for you, but for someone like Candice and somebody like Rex, you could open the door to a whole nother downward spiral in their lives. And that's another whole story we could talk about, but I know somebody has captured something. The kid situation, and there may be somebody out there working in a bank today. Open addiction, but nobody knows about it because they don't look the part. She was there, but then it spit her out in that parking lot that night, and she could have died, but she's here. So I want you just to give just briefly just one thing that you could say to someone out there that said, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. Give them something to hold on to.
Find your worth. Just know that you are worth it.
Yes.
As soon as you figure that out, mountains will move.
That's powerful. And listen to me. None of us have ever made eye contact with another human being that God doesn't love and have a beautiful plan and purpose for their life. And so it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you've been, where you are right now. You're loved. You are a part of a plan that he started thousands of years ago for you to be able to come into a situation like this and just start to believe in you. You can do this. You can be the person that you long to be. You can be the mother. You can be the father. You can be the spouse. You can be the mother, the daughter. Such a beautiful picture of this story of hope right here. It could be yours. I'd love for you to start today on your journey of hope. If it's okay with you, we're going to have a word of prayer, and I'm going to ask Candice if she would just pray over somebody right there that's this close to making a decision to start a journey of hope. Candice, could you lead us in this prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father God, we just thank you once again, Lord, for just another day full of your mercies, God, and your grace. Lord, I pray if there's anyone out there that's still struggling, Lord, if they're just struggling to find their worth, struggling to find their identity, God, I just pray that you just wrap your arms around them, God, and just give them peace and just give them the wisdom and the knowledge to know that not only are they worth it, but they can do it.
Yes.
God, I just pray for their strength, Lord, that they just find the strength just to make each step count, Lord, and just to continue to stride forward, Lord, towards you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I want to personally thank each of you for joining us on Hope Connection today. I trust that you were encouraged by the story of hope that you heard. Now, I hope you'll reach out to us with your comments, concerns, questions, and also, if you'll see the number and the email address that are coming across the screen, please reach out to us. If you need someone to talk with, to walk with you, to point you in the right direction, please give us an opportunity. We would love to do anything that we can to be able to help you in this journey of hope that you are doing. Also, please help us by sharing this episode with your friends and family, either through Facebook or any other media outlet that you use. Please help us by sharing and getting the word out. And remember, there is hope. Keep walking. Don't give up. You can do this. Until next time, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. God bless you.